When a man goes silent, people love to explain it away. They say he's busy, he's stressed, he's confused. He doesn't know what he wants yet. Let me tell you something real. Silence is not confusion. Silence is a decision. A grown man knows how to pick up a phone. A grown man knows how to send a text. A grown man knows how to say, I'm busy right now, but I'll call you later. When none of that happens, when days turn into weeks and weeks turn into nothing, that silence didn't just appear by accident. It was chosen. See, when someone truly values you, your absence makes noise in their life. They feel it, they notice it. They miss your voice, your presence, your energy. Silence creates discomfort in people who care. It pushes them to act, to reach out, to reconnect. But when a man is comfortable in silence, it means the connection was never a priority to him in the first place. And that's not about your worth. That's about his level of investment. A lot of people struggle because they keep filling in the silence with hope. You start thinking, maybe he's going through something, or maybe he's scared to reach out. Or maybe he thinks, I don't want to hear from him. No, if a man wants to hear from you, he will make sure you hear from him. Men are simple. When it comes to what they want, they go after it. They don't sit around wondering if they should care. They care or they don't. Silence is also how some people keep control by not responding, by not explaining, by leaving things unfinished. They leave you guessing. And while you're guessing, you're emotionally invested, replaying conversations, checking your phone, analyzing every little detail. Meanwhile, he's at peace because he already made his choice. Silence allows him to avoid responsibility without having to say a word. Let me say this clearly. If he wanted to keep you in his life, you wouldn't be confused about where you stand. Confusion comes from mixed signals, and mixed signals come from mixed intentions. A man who is serious doesn't send signals, he sends clarity. He doesn't leave you wondering if you matter, he shows you that you do. Silence is what happens when someone doesn't want to move forward, but also doesn't want to explain why. Sometimes silence feels louder than rejection. At least rejection gives you an answer. Silence leaves the door cracked just enough for you to stay emotionally stuck. And that's dangerous because while you're waiting, you're not healing. While you're hoping, you're not moving on. You're giving time, energy, and mental space to someone who isn't giving anything back. Here's the part that hurts but frees you at the same time. When he stopped talking to you, he showed you exactly where you fit in his life. Not where he said you fit. Not where you hoped you fit. Where you actually fit. People prioritize what matters to them. They protect what matters to them. They show up for what matters to them. Silence is what happens when you're no longer on that list. Now, don't confuse silence with rest or space that was communicated. That's different. If someone tells you, I need time, but I'll check in, and they actually do, that's honesty. That's respect. But disappearing without explanation is not space, it's avoidance. And avoidance is a choice to not deal with your feelings or yours. What hurts most is realizing that the person you've been thinking about nonstop hasn't been thinking enough about you to reach out. But that realization is also power. Because once you accept that silence is a decision, you stop taking it personally. You stop asking what you did wrong. You stop shrinking yourself, over-explaining, or reaching out just to be acknowledged. Silence is not a puzzle to solve. It's an answer to accept. It's life telling you to pay attention to actions instead of words, to reality instead of hope. And the moment you stop chasing clarity from someone who chose silence, you reclaim your peace. You stop begging for breadcrumbs and start remembering that you deserve a full meal. The truth is, the right person won't risk losing you by staying quiet. They won't gamble with your feelings. They won't let days pass without hearing your voice. Because to them, silence wouldn't feel safe. It would feel like loss. And anyone who can lose you without speaking was never meant to keep you. When a man goes silent, people try to soften it so it hurts less. They say he's busy, he's overwhelmed, he's trying to figure things out. But let me tell you something straight. Silence is not confusion. Silence is a decision. A grown man does not forget how to communicate. He chooses when to use his voice and when not to. And when he doesn't use it with you, that choice is already an answer. When someone truly wants you in their life, silence feels uncomfortable to them. They miss you. They wonder how you're doing. They feel the gap you leave behind. Silence creates urgency in people who care. It pushes them to reconnect, to explain, to show up. But when silence feels easy, when days turn into weeks and nothing changes, it means your absence didn't disturb their peace. And that realization hurts, but it also tells the truth. A lot of people get trapped in their own thoughts during silence. You replay old conversations, analyze tone, timing, and moments when things felt good. You convince yourself that if you just understood one more detail, everything would make sense. But silence is not something you need to decode. It's something you need to observe. Because while you're searching for meaning, he has already settled into his choice. Here's the second truth people avoid. Thinking about him constantly does not mean he's thinking about you. Emotional attachment is powerful. Your mind wants closure, your heart wants familiarity, and your emotions crave what once felt safe. That doesn't mean the feeling is mutual. It means you're attached to a version of him that existed when communication was present. When a man is interested, his actions remove doubt. He checks in. He asks questions. He stays connected. He doesn't let long stretches of silence exist without explanation. Men don't struggle to show interest. They struggle to show interest in someone they are unsure about. And uncertainty shows up as inconsistency, distance, and eventually silence. Silence can also be a form of control. By not responding, by not explaining, by leaving things unfinished, he leaves you hanging emotionally. While you're wondering what went wrong, he avoids responsibility. Silence allows him to walk away without facing discomfort or accountability. And the longer you stay mentally engaged, the more power that silence holds over you. People often say if he cared, he'd say something. That's true, but it's deeper than that. If he respected you, he wouldn't disappear. Respect shows up in honesty, even when honesty is uncomfortable. Silence is easier than telling someone you're not ready, not interested, or not willing to commit. So some people choose quiet instead of courage. Now let's talk about what happens to you during this silence. You start questioning your value. You wonder if you said too much, asked for too much, or expected too much. You shrink yourself in your own mind, trying to become more acceptable, more patient, more understanding. But none of that changes silence, because silence has nothing to do with your worth. The hardest part is accepting that the person you're thinking about so deeply is not matching your emotional investment. But that acceptance is where your power returns. Because once you stop romanticizing the silence, you stop chasing answers from someone who isn't offering them. Sometimes silence is life's way of protecting you. If communication continued, you might stay attached to potential instead of reality. Silence forces you to see what's actually happening, not what you wish was happening. It creates space for clarity, even when that clarity hurts. If a man truly wants to be with you, you won't need to guess. You won't need to interpret silence. You won't need to wait in confusion. Interest shows up loudly through consistency. It shows up in effort, reliability, and presence. Silence is what happens when someone doesn't want to move forward, but also doesn't want to explain why. So when he's constantly on your mind, but not in your messages, understand this. Your feelings are real, but silence is real too. And silence speaks the truth actions refuse to say. The moment you accept that, You stop giving mental space to someone who hasn't earned emotional access, and you begin choosing yourself instead. When a man goes silent, most people rush to explain it away because silence is uncomfortable. They tell themselves he's busy, he's tired, he's overwhelmed, he needs time, he's dealing with personal things. But the truth is much simpler and much harder to accept. Silence is not confusion. Silence is a decision. A grown man knows how to communicate. He knows how to send a short message. He knows how to say he needs space. When he chooses to say nothing at all, that choice carries meaning whether we like it or not. Silence happens when someone decides not to prioritize connection. Because when a man truly wants someone, silence feels heavy to him. It bothers him. He wonders how you're doing. He misses the sound of your voice. He feels the absence. Silence creates pressure in people who care. It pushes them to act. But when silence feels easy, when he can go days or weeks without reaching out, it means your absence didn't disrupt his emotional world. And that realization stings because it forces you to face reality instead of hope. The mind hates unfinished stories. When communication stops, suddenly your thoughts fill the gap. You replay conversations. You remember laughs, late nights, and moments that felt special. You convince yourself that something real existed and that silence must mean something complicated. But silence is rarely complicated. It's simple. Someone decided not to continue. At the same time, thinking about him constantly doesn't mean he's thinking about you. Emotional attachment doesn't require mutual effort. You can feel deeply connected to someone who has already emotionally stepped away. Your mind clings to familiarity, not truth. It holds on to the version of him that showed up, not the version that disappeared. That's why he stays on your mind even when he's no longer present in your life. Attachment creates illusion. It makes you believe that because your feelings are strong, they must be shared. But feelings don't work like mirrors. They don't automatically reflect back. A man can enjoy your presence, your energy, and your attention without wanting responsibility or consistency. And when that happens, silence becomes his exit strategy. Men show interest through action, not emotion. A man can like you, think you're attractive, enjoy talking to you, and still not be willing to invest. Real interest shows up as consistency. It shows up in effort. It shows up in checking in, making time, and staying connected even when life gets busy. Silence is what shows up when interest drops below effort. One of the most painful parts of silence is the confusion it creates. You start asking yourself what you did wrong. You wonder if you said too much, expected too much, cared too much. You question your timing, your words, your standards. But silence is not feedback on your worth. It's feedback on his readiness and intention. Silence can also be a form of avoidance. Instead of having an uncomfortable conversation, some people disappear. Instead of explaining their feelings, they withdraw. Silence allows them to escape accountability. And while you're stuck waiting for answers, they've already moved on emotionally. That imbalance is what keeps you trapped in thought while they remain at peace. The hardest truth to accept is that silence answers the question you're afraid to ask. If he wanted to stay connected, he would. If he valued the bond, he wouldn't risk losing it through quiet. People protect what matters to them. They nurture what they want to grow. Silence is what happens when someone doesn't want to move forward but doesn't want to admit it either. It's important to understand the difference between communicated space and unexplained silence. Space that is discussed comes with reassurance. Silence that appears without explanation comes with confusion. One is respectful. The other is dismissive. And respect is a non-negotiable foundation for any healthy connection. When he's constantly on your mind, it often means the connection ended without closure. Your heart is still trying to finish a story that he stopped writing. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But staying mentally attached to someone who chose silence keeps you emotionally unavailable to people who will actually show up. Silence can feel louder than rejection. Rejection gives clarity. Silence leaves you guessing. And as long as you're guessing, you're stuck. You wait for signs, excuses, and imaginary explanations. Meanwhile, time keeps moving, and so does life. Here's where your power comes back. The moment you stop interpreting silence as a puzzle and start accepting it as an answer, you regain control. You stop chasing explanations. You stop sending messages just to feel acknowledged. You stop giving emotional access to someone who closed the door without a word. If a man truly wants you, you won't be wondering where you stand. You won't be anxious about silence. You won't be filling gaps with imagination. Interest removes doubt. It doesn't create it. Consistency doesn't leave room for confusion. Silence does. So if he's on your mind but not in your phone, understand this clearly. Your feelings are real, but his actions are real too. And actions always tell the truth. When you listen to them instead of fighting them, you stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself. When a man goes quiet, the mind immediately looks for reasons that feel less painful than the truth. You tell yourself he's busy, he's overwhelmed, he needs time, he's dealing with life. But silence is not an accident, and it's not confusion. Silence is a decision. A grown man knows how to communicate. He knows how to send a message, how to explain himself, how to say he needs space. When he chooses not to do any of that, when he lets days stretch into weeks without a word, that quiet is intentional whether he admits it or not. People who truly care don't feel comfortable in silence. Silence bothers them. It pulls at them. It makes them wonder how you're doing and whether you're okay. Silence creates urgency in people who are emotionally invested. It pushes them to act, to reach out, to reconnect. But when a man can sit in silence without discomfort, when he can go on with his life as if nothing is missing, it means your absence didn't disturb his emotional balance. And that realization hurts because it forces you to accept that the connection mattered more to you than it did to him. At the same time, there's another trap people fall into. If he's constantly on your mind, you start believing that you must be on his mind too. But thinking about someone does not create a shared reality. Emotional attachment can exist on one side only. Your mind keeps replaying memories, conversations, moments when you felt seen and valued. Your heart clings to familiarity because it once felt good. But that doesn't mean he's replaying the same moments. It means you're attached to a version of him that existed before the silence. The mind hates unfinished stories. When communication ends without closure, your thoughts rush in to fill the gap. You